today is May the 11th, 2021, and I am here with Michael Sean Comerford, and he is currently in Santa Monica, California, and I am Deborah Hendrix, back here in the oral history program at the University of Florida. And we're going to talk a little bit today, just a little bit, because, you know, Michael doesn't do long interviews like we do in the oral history program about his trip, his amazing trip.
This project needed a nod from you guys that really helped it, and so getting that, I know I helped you, but you helped me greatly, and of course all the editing that's gone on, and then being in constant communication, that is so important, and being encouraging, because I made this decision very quickly to go out on the road fast, but I did a fair amount of reading about winter bicycling. And like in the first chapter of one of these books I read was, you'll go through a certain amount of depression. And I remember this because I once did a bicycle ride in February from Chicago to New Orleans after I got my master's degree at Northwestern. And I remember thinking, nobody cares that you're doing this. Why do you care if you're doing this? And on this trip, I had other reasons to, suffer doubts about the project, and so having someone on the other end of the line that was consistently helpful was amazing lifeline. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Well, believe me, we're the ones that are so enthralled with what you're doing. And we're an oral history program. We work in the field, but not like you do. And so, this has been quite a journey for us too, because at first I have to say, when I try to describe what you were doing, they're like, what now? What? Well, now let me, I actually got a copy of your book, American Oz. And
all right.
I did, and I really am enjoying it so far. I got it on my Kindle right now.
All right.
So I think I've got a little more insight into why why you're doing this. Do you think you might have like a little daredevil streak going on?
I do think that what makes me a little unusual is that I am endlessly fascinated by other human beings, and I do think that history is written about the famous people, the big people at the top, but the world moves on the stories of everyone else. And so everyone's got a story, and everyone is what is really moving the world and civilization and history forward. And so getting out there and interviewing people and treating them like their opinions are important, and just even for a short amount of time, valuing their opinion so much so that we can get it down and then analyze it in the end. I think it's a real privilege, and I think that's sort of what you do for a living. I mean, out there, and the oral history. I think in years to come, people are going to say, "Hey, how did we come through that last one?" Well, there was Trump, and then there was Biden, and then there was Republicans and then there were Democrats. But, you know, there are just people, lots of them, and we're getting through it by telling ourselves different stories. And this is a great way of chronicling them and seeing threads in them. And I still haven't made sense of it yet. I want to go through them all again and think more deeply about them. But guess, today I was right by Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills, on Beverly Drive, and at a Jewish deli with a Hollywood agent and one of his best friends, a Hollywood attorney. And the Hollywood agent said, I know of a vaccine that isn't approved yet. No, I know of a cure for, not a cure, I guess it's a remedy that will speed up the healing process that the FDA hasn't approved yet. And I go, wait, you're a big time Hollywood agent, and you are essentially telling me the same thing as that guy, the rancher, did out in Oklahoma. A friend told him that this will make you better and better fast. And he knows people that have gotten better. And it's the same process going on, only in a different level.
Yes. Well, I mean, you're preaching to the choir, because we know these stories as well. But I mean, we know this too, that everyone has a story to tell, and they don't think it's necessarily important. And so I think you probably run across this in you've got a longer history than just this one trip. But when people do have a chance to tell their story, it's really liberating for them to find out that someone else thinks it's important enough to record. And we see this all the time. And it's just, that's one of the, I guess, the benefits, like you feel, I'm sure, of doing these. Now, we do more of a long form oral history, but it's the same thing. And now all of these people that you interviewed, it didn't seem like they were that reluctant to talk.
Well, some, I think, were leaving out things, and some were lying. And guess what? That's how we talk. And that's how we talk to ourselves. We're telling ourselves lies all the time. You don't look that bad. You're not as bad as you thought you were. But I'm thinking of a guy in Licking, Missouri, who sat down in a liquor store. I went in for a Gatorade, and I thought it was a convenience store. But he went up and he got himself some small whiskey bottles, and you maybe know what I'm talking about then. And he got some beer, and I said, "Do you want to interview?" And he said, "Sure." He talked to me about it and said, no, he doesn't know anyone who was seriously sick, but he had a lot of opinions. And then he left, and then the owner of the store said, "Well, I'm surprised he didn't mention his wife, who died of COVID just a few weeks ago."
Yeah.
And so he wasn't lying to me. He just wasn't, I guess he was lying in that he'd said he didn't have anyone that close to him that had done it. And she said, I think he would have broken down and started crying. And that's what he's afraid of if he started talking too frankly. And she said he breaks down sometimes, when he comes in just to purchase liquor. So he's not dealing with it very well. And I wrote about that underneath his video. So I don't know if you probably read that.
Yeah, I did. I love those. I loved your kind of analysis and comments. So that was very, very enriching, I thought.
Are we taping this?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Hi, everybody. And here's the story cycle in the background. It's hard to see
there it
because
is.
of the
There it
window
is.
behind it, but there is a bicycle next to a table, and it says, "Tell me a story" on the back.
Did you calculate how many miles that you have ridden on your bike so far?
Well, the Adventure Cycling Association says it's 2,500 miles. So I know that if you do a GPS search, it will be something like 2,200 miles, but that's not along Route 66. It's just straight from Chicago. And so it's probably close to 2,500 miles, probably 2,400 something.
And so you backtracked a few times. I know that.
Yeah.
When bridges and
Yes.
so major disasters happen along your path.
Yes.
Well, let me, I know that you finished writing your book, American Oz. When did you finish writing that book? It wasn't that long ago.
No, I finished writing it last summer and published it myself. The New York agent I had was unsuccessful in selling it to a major publishing house. In that, part of my book has to do with I went to 10 carnivals in 10 states, from California to New York, from Alaska down to Mexico, but I lived on carnival wages, and so I had to hitchhike to these carnivals. I became the number one hitchhiker in America, and I make that claim because I researched it and I believe it. And so I don't think anyone could have researched it more, and nobody could disprove it. So, but the big publishing houses said hitchhiking is poison. No one wants to read about that, and carnivals are not selling books, and so you have two clunker ideas mixed together, and you aren't clear on this doesn't have the clear winner formula that we want. And so I just thought, well, then it means it's an original book, and like the story cycle is. And so I said, look, I just don't want to take the one away from the other. I don't want to make it a pure carnival book. I don't want to make it write a different hitchhiking book. I like this. This is a great book. And so I published it last summer, and then I had to market it, and I had to do an audio book, and I didn't finish that audio book until January. And so then it takes 2 months for them to publish it through Audible and Findaway Voices. And so that means so they can go to you guys all. They can go to a university library and all that. And so I was just finished with that project when I started thinking about what should I do next. And this came to mind to me in a dream when I tried to mine my dreams for inspiration. But as I've told you personally before, is that I was reminded of a dinner I had at the Intercontinental with Paul Solopek, a two-time Pulitzer Prize winner. And he paid for dinner. He wanted to meet me because he'd heard about some of the work I've been doing. And but we started talking, and he got into these slow journalism ideas. And he's now on Out of Eden Walk, sponsored by Pulitzer Center and the National Geographics. And he's walking around the world from the first known discovery of humans, and that being in the Rift Valley in Ethiopia and tracing the migration of humankind from there through Asia, through across the Bering Straits, down through North America, and down to the tip of South America. And he's walking, and he's now in Myanmar. And he said it would take him 7 years, but he's only in Myanmar after 7 years. And so it's going to take him a long time. I don't know. I'm guessing 20, but he's saying another 7. He is writing really terrific essays and taking some film. And so it occurred to me that the biggest story of the year coming up was COVID. And we were going to pass some important milestones, and that being a year of when the CDC first declared it a pandemic. We were coming up on 500,000 dead. We were in the midst of we were in the midst of February. We were very nearly the height of the most dead per day.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, look, I have to go now. I can't go after it's all done and people are just remembering what it was all like. We have to be living it. And while it's fresh in our minds, talking about how we're surviving it. And so even though there was a polar vortex at the time that was from Texas on up to the upper Midwest, was, creating power outages and things like that. I ducked that, and then I left the last week of February, and I just knew that this is an original project also. This is something that, Paul Salopek isn't doing. He's doing a walk, and he's covering a lot of different subjects, and he doesn't have my focus. And my focus was COVID, and I did open up my questions to some that you have asked me to ask and others, but I attempted to stay close to the questions I was asking because I wanted everyone to answer them in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
So there would be some focus even there, because even the topic of COVID is a wide open question. So I got a lot of interest, and I can tell you, after all these interviews, people are thanking me. Thank you for listening. They're really. I did one here at this hotel, and it was a fella. He's a Uber driver, but he wants to live in Berlin, but he was out of Berlin when COVID came, so now he can't get back. Anyway, he had a bunch of interesting ideas, but the next thing I know, he thanked me, and next thing I know, he's talking to the front desk saying, "Hey, you know what? I just got interviewed by some guy who's working with the University of Florida, and now I'm going to be in the history books." I'm going down in history.
But you're going to be in your book too. So
yeah, you're going down in my book, and you're going down in the oral history books of the oral history program of the University of Florida, Samuel Proctor oral history program. And so that's a little bit of for your audience, a little bit of rundown of the genesis of the idea.
Well, I think I think you're spot on that it was a turning point. I think you did hit it just at the right moment because, even here, I noticed how quickly people are forgetting, right, about what they've been going through, and everyone has been affected. It kind of reminds me, let me ask you this. Did you do any research on the pandemic of 1918 to see? There seems to be a lot of similarities, especially the forgetting part.
Yeah. And, there's a big difference. And I did a lot of research, as much as I possibly could.
Okay.
And, but one of the things is that, do you know that pandemic would hit a city and be gone in 4 months? it would be gone in relatively short amount of time, but would kill amazing amounts of people. And it was essentially forgotten, not by people who went through it, but it didn't make it down. It was not one of those trauma-inducing events that went really down in the history books. People were surprised by this. A lot of people were surprised by COVID, saying, "You mean there was worse ones than this, and we should have been expecting another pandemic?" Well, I'll now expect more pandemics in the future, that's for sure. But 1918 was essentially a forgotten pandemic, and this won't be.
No, it's well documented, that's for sure. But I can tell you that they're already forgetting all the restrictions.
Oh, and also think about this: there was a World War going on during that time, and it was very political. A lot of people were, saying, "Hey, we're conservatives, and we think this way," and other people were saying, "Well, let's do what the doctors say." But even the doctors at that time, their ethics were completely different. And same with journalists. Journalists were asked to downplay it for the war effort. And that there were strong reasons to, and of course the military was lying to us. So the government was lying to us about how severe it was. The press was not going out and doing their due diligence because there's a war on. You have to be patriotic. You have to support your country, and then people were justifiably feeling they had been betrayed and lied to. And this time around, there are a lot of people with some memory of this, and I can say African Americans and Native Americans, and these people are saying, "Hey, and rural Americans are saying it. They don't believe the government. They'll say it just flat out. I think the government does not have our best interests in mind." And some of them are saying, well, they want to control us. They want to make money off of us. They're lying. Something is going wrong. There's something nefarious going on. And that all happened in 1918. And we got a lot of disinformation, and I would say outright lies, at the beginning of this. And so we were repeating a lot of their mistakes of the last one, which were government was not on message, and were lying to us sometimes.
Yeah. Well, you certainly heard a lot of that around here. Let me ask you something, Michael, as just about the process. Now, when you go into a town, never been there before, I'm assuming, on your bike. Now, what do you do? How do you approach people? And I'm just curious about that, and get them to answer you.
I do not like soliciting people to work with me a lot. And so what I did a lot of times was, if you talk to me at all, I mean at all, "Hi, good morning," bang, that was my in.
Okay.
But I also had this sign on the back of my bicycle, "Tell me a story," and people really, they would come out of one guy walked across the whole parking lot. I saw him walking practically a football field away just to talk to me. He says, "Tell me you a story. You tell me a story." I said, "All right, I'll tell you a story." And then I would get around to my pitch of, and I did whatever pitch I thought would work. Sometimes I sensed the person thought that no one had ever listened to them ever before in their life. And I brought that up, you know. I mean, why, you're a man, you know, why aren't your opinions as good as everybody else's? Well, for once, you have someone here begging for your opinion. And that really worked with one guy. He goes, "Oh, you're right, man. I'll talk to you." That worked in Barstow. And but it didn't always work. One time I used it with a woman and she goes, "People are asking my opinion all the time. They just asked me for my opinion 5 minutes ago." Okay, I go, okay, I'll try another approach here. And yeah, I would use the University of Florida's oral history program as a way of saying, look, I ride by, I've said this not a lot of times. I said it once or twice, but maybe more. But I've ridden past graveyards and I see these grave stones that are so, well, actually, I slept in a few graveyards and because no one bothers you but the ghosts. And because I don't believe in ghosts, no problem. And but anyway, but their headstones are too old to be read. The headstones are too old to be read. So I've thought this and I have said it to people. You can't read those headstones after a little while. And no one who knows you are going to be around. But this is going to be around. And that appealed to some people. But I've used a variety of different pitches, including flattery. I am a good flatterer. Well, anyway, let's put it this way. I find it easy to flatter people. And so I will tell them, you know, I am astonished every day by how articulate people are, and you are going to be surprised about how articulate you are going to be. I'm going to get from you, you're going to surprise yourself on how deeply you've already been thinking about this. And your opinion matters. And I don't know how much of a flattery that is, but that's the truth. And people do come out with astonishingly compelling things. There was this guy, and you probably remember this guy. He was Stinger, I think his name was, and he was in Chandling, Missouri. He was in a bait shop, and he helped me get a ride to Joplin, Missouri, because my bike had broke down. But he had COVID so bad that he was gonna die. He was a long hauler. He was still wearing monitors on his lungs and his heart when I met him, and he showed it to us. He lifted his shirt.
I saw.
And but he told this story both on camera and off camera that was so compelling, where he has a fiancée and he reached out his hand and he says, "I'm a tactile person. I love to touch people." And there I was. I reached out that hospital bed toward the window and I could not touch the person I loved most in this world. And he goes, it just broke my heart. And I stood there, and there's this macho guy in a hunting and bait shop and fishing. And the customer there was standing there, and he was kind of tearing up. And we were just listening to this guy who had feared for his life and who admits that he was kind of dismissive about the whole. He was a man of his region, where they were being dismissive about this whole hoax that was being perpetrated by Democrats and liberals, and it wasn't as bad as all of that. It was just another flu. And then when he got it, now he's a changed man. He has a religion, but he also believes that he's a subject of a miracle. So I get this very articulate person talking about the heartbreak of getting COVID, of of the way it mistreats you when you're ill. We can't bury our dead. We can't touch our loved ones.
Right.
And then we also see him living the after effects of it. And we also see him, a change of heart and mind. I just found it compelling from beginning to end. And his story was unusual in that he almost died. And this program is really about how people are living with COVID and coping with it. But he thought this is my eventual point was, he thought he was the subject of a miracle. So on top of everything else, he thinks that a miracle helped him. So I had all these things he was touching on every theme that I wanted to touch on. He was dismissive. He thought it was he was political. Then he got it. Then he changed his mind. Now he's got to live with it. And he's chosen to think that it's a direct intervention from God that saved him, because God cares about him. And so that's the kind of stories that we tell ourselves, that, that we were saved because of fate, because we're special, because in the eyes of our God, because of I've had people tell me off camera, I don't think I ever got it on camera, but a lot of people have said it's because of their positive mental attitude they're being saved. If you think you're going to get it, you're going to get it. And I don't know of a study that backs that up. And here's another thing, and you asked about my process, and I was lucky enough to be interviewed by the Arizona Daily Sun, Arizona's Daily Sun, and they were quite flattering. I don't know if you read that article.
I did read it, yeah.
Yes. If I was writing it myself, I would have been too embarrassed to write it. But he asked me in the interview, aren't you afraid for some of these people, because they're not vaccinating and they're not masking, and they're working in retail, and don't you feel it's your responsibility to tell them they have cockamamie ideas, and they should mask up and vaccinate and save their own lives and save other people's lives, because you can get it and not know it and spread it. And so I said, I have thought of this moral issue and others, which is I started out on this program unvaccinated. So I might have been a spreader. So there were some ethical issues here. And I said, one is I was hoping I didn't get it before I got vaccinated, which I did in Arizona, even though I wasn't, in New Mexico, sorry, even though I wasn't a resident. And I thought about informing people that they were not only risking their lives, but they're risking everyone that they meet's lives. Or informing them that I thought their ideas were not holding water, or they weren't thinking clearly. And I just told them that would be just preposterous. It would be against everything this whole program is about. I am here to hear what they are saying. I'm not here to save their life. I'm not here to save other lives.
Yeah.
And that is the way the world works. Is if you do one thing, you can't do another. If I'm going to get these stories, I can also go out and I'm not saving any lives. But I am documenting lives. And that's the moral dilemma I had to think about. And I crossed. And whether I'm right or wrong is up to others to decide.
Well, from an oral history perspective, you're dead on. You're spot on there. You can't. Yeah, that would be a bias, and we don't really engage in that.
Right.
Let me.
I think people can guess, and I haven't told you either, but where I stand. But I think people can guess where I stand in that I vaccinated myself and I mask. But other than that, I will tell you also, through Missouri, Oklahoma, and Texas, I would say at least half of the people asked me if I knew Jesus before they would talk to me. And I said, I will not tell you what I think about COVID. I will not tell you anything about religion, my thoughts about religion or politics. And I just can't. And everyone accepted it. But they all asked. I mean, so many people asked. One person in Missouri, in the Ozark Mountains, said, "Son, you're not in the Bible Belt. You're in the buckle of the Bible Belt. Now, do you know Jesus or not?" And I go, "I won't talk. I won't say." And one guy did not accept that, and he says, "Okay, you don't have to tell me if you know Jesus, but you have to tell me what your purpose is in life, because I've already talked to you, and I think I deserve that." And so I gave him. I waxed on a bit. I went to college in Ireland and near the Blarney Stone, so I waxed on. I kept talking.
Wow.
I don't know if I made any sense.
Oh my goodness. I mean, this is so fascinating to me, Michael. For one thing, I forgot to ask a question that we generally ask before we start an interview. If this is interviews, not even interviews, but what would you prefer to be called? Do you rather be called Michael or Mike? Or
I don't care. Michael, Mike, or Michael. I signed everything Michael Sean because in the day of internet, that differentiates me from everyone. I have on my Facebook page 10 Michaels that are friends, Michael Comerfords, who are friends of mine. I did it out of a lark. I wanted Mike to see if they would, if everyone with the same name would like to keep up with each other. But it actually kind of is confusing to people because now I get Facebook and Instagram people saying, "Hey, Michael, I didn't think you lived in Ireland, or I didn't think you did this or that." But I go by Mike or Michael. And
okay.
As a kid, I was Michael Sean whenever I did something wrong, and my mother would yell at me. But
oh yeah.
But it's mostly Michael Sean is a way to make it easy to find me and the story cycle online. Michael Sean Comerford.
Well, what about the name Story Cycle? I was just curious. How did that come to you, or did you already have it in your?
Well, I just thought of story cycles. A story cycle is many stories that are tied together by a theme. And this is many stories tied together by the COVID, and it's a bicycle. And I just thought, well, let's call the bicycle the story cycle, and so to differentiate from English teachers out there who are writing about story cycles, I'll call it the story cycle, Americans in a Pandemic. And then with a subtitle, Bicycling Route 66 and Asking COVID Questions. Bicycling Route 66, Chicago to LA, Asking COVID Questions. And I've yet to see if that's going to be the final name of the book, but I am going to write a book at the end of the year. Today, I met with the Hollywood agent and producer, and we're going to try to get a documentary out of this. But if I do, it would be this would be a miracle on the level of the miracle in Missouri. Not quite on that level, but it would be it's going to be a tough sell for that. But it is a visual thing. And I think that tying some of these, once I have a better thought out way of unifying these many, many stories, I'll have a better idea of how we can make a documentary out of it. And why not? I've seen short films with less information on it. And I know it's generating a lot of interest out here.
It is. I mean, even our director, who is mostly into social, I probably should turn this off at this point, but he's very interested in, he's not here now, but very interested in your progress. Let me ask you.
That's good to know.
It's very interesting, yes. I wish you could meet him. He's a 1 in a million guy, and I think you would really get a lot of insights from speaking with him. So maybe we can arrange that sometime. What I wanted to do, if I could go back a little bit, if you'll indulge me, just asking a little bit about where you grew up and your family. I know you were a military brat, right?
Well, I was born in, you have read the American Oz. And in the introduction to my book, American Oz, about my year in traveling carnivals, I mentioned that I had some affiliation to people who live on the road, because I was born in San Diego, California, on a military base when my father was a gunnery officer for the USS Alamo, an LSD ship. And but my parents, I think you might be alluding to one of the funny stories that I bring up and speculations that I bring up, which is I was born 9 months after my parents were married. So they married, they got in a car and they drove to San Diego on Route 66. And I speculate that I was conceived in one of those cheap hotels on Route 66 that I stayed in. I'm just returning to the scenes of the crime. And the other funny coincidence, or not coincidence, speculation, I'm backing up. This is not to do with that topic. But I got a bicycle. When I started out, I bought my bicycle on Craigslist because of COVID, bicycle shops are flooded with work and they're bereft of parts and new bikes. And so I went to 2 local bike stores in my area, and they both said it would be over a year before they get a bicycle in of a touring quality. So I went onto Craigslist and I went down to Chicago and I bought a bike for a couple $100 that's between 40 and 50 years old. And it is a Panasonic LX, Sport LX. And I owned a Panasonic Sport LX in the 80s, and it was stolen on the north side of Chicago. And I had bought this from a Polish immigrant on the north side of Chicago, and I speculated that this is the same bike that I got stolen from me. It's the same color, it's the same make, and yep, it's the same color, it's the same make, and it has foam on the handlebars, as mine did. It's new foam, but it's not 50-year-old foam. But it could be the exact same bike, and I think it's fun to speculate that I bought a hot bike back from a series of people.
Wow.
And then rode down the very highway where I was conceived.
That's amazing. Are your parents still?
Yes, they are. They're down in Marco. In fact, this is in the next couple of days, I'm going to fly down to Marco Island in southern Florida, and I'm going to drive them. My mother's eyes are needing some help these days, and my dad's driving always needed help. And so I'm going to drive them back to Chicago for the summer. And I don't know how they're going to get back. I don't know if I'm going to do that too, but I have some more traveling ahead of me.
Oh, okay.
From from Southern Florida to Chicago for the summer. And then, my family is moving, my extended family. My daughter's 15. She originally opposed this project along with my ex-wife. And I took it very seriously because, well, there were snowstorms out and I was not in shape. And I just finished my book and audio book. I'd been sitting all day for that. And my daughter came to me and said, Dad, I feel like this is a death ride. And then she cried on my chest. She's 15. She's the president of her class in sophomore year at Barrington High School. And she has 2 podcasts, one on the environment and one for the high school that she founded. And she's an author too. She's got 2 books out.
Wow.
And but I had to overcome that. And so now my daughter wants to go to college in California. And so she believes she'll have a better chance at going to Berkeley if she's in state. So they're moving to California, to LA, right here. And so I also joke that I'm here checking out and seeing if LA is safe enough for her. And I'm going to move out here also at the end of summer to be near my daughter. Ex-wife.
Well, let me, that I'm just curious about one more thing. Of course, I could go on, but how did you prepare? How did you feel like you needed to get in shape, or I know you don't have much on your bike there.
I must tell you that I was talking about this just yesterday from the pier. I was so ecstatic about getting to the pier. I went out and I got a clam chowder at a restaurant at the end of the Santa Monica Pier and some water. And I called one of my best friends and I mentioned to him that I made some good decisions very quickly because I was on the verge of making some horrible decisions. I mean, within seconds of making some horrible decisions. And my original one, and I talked to you about this, my original route was to San Francisco. That was upper Midwest, and that was hit by some monster storms this winter. And I would have made it, but it would have been very difficult. And preparation-wise, I prepared for that. And so I have a sleeping bag that's good for 15 below zero, and a tent that's a 4-season tent built for winters. And I got a computer that is military grade. It is as heavy as a couple bricks. And so this is a heavy pack that I had. And I was very afraid that I needed a trailer or something. Maybe I should get a trailer. And then I thought, well, maybe if I get rid of this laptop, and I had talked to you about this, I thought I was going to go to libraries and file from libraries. Well, that was stupid because the first half dozen libraries I went to, all of them were gone. They were closed or were not allowing people inside and for computer usage. And so I decided to take a military grade laptop. I decided on a good camera with a good sound system that was recommended to me by Best Buy as something that hikers like because it's a Nikon Z50 4K, and it's built to take it. And so and then at the last second I decided, well, look, let's not go to San Francisco. Let's go down America's Main Street. It makes more sense thematically. And let's take that laptop. I don't care how heavy it is. And if there are breakdowns, I'm going to handle them. And there were 5 breakdowns. There was a breakdown in Illinois in Edwardsville. There was a breakdown in Missouri near Joplin. There was a breakdown in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and 2 breakdowns in Albuquerque that were fixed. And and I believe that is all because I was a heavy rider, out of shape, and because I chose to take this winter gear, which made it very comfortable sleeping in the snow in Illinois. I loved it, and then the laptop it was invaluable, and it did not break down, and the camera equipment. I mean, I made a lot of good, smart decisions in a short amount of time when I could have really messed it all up by not bringing a laptop. Or I actually bought a cheap camera that would undoubtedly have broken, but it wouldn't have worked anyway. It was probably false advertising. And so I returned that camera and got a better one. And I did it all very fast. And and I got ready for a move because my ex-wife is moving and I have to get my stuff out of her basement.
Oh, and, this is Chicago. Yeah. In Chicago?
Yeah. And, so I made a lot of decisions fast, and you would say I was unprepared. I left unprepared. I was out of shape. I did not know how to fully yet edit those videos. I was going to learn that on the road. And then all of a sudden, you swept in there and started editing. And that was a tremendous help, a godsend. And so there were a lot of things that I did not know how to do yet, but I figured I'd learn how to do it on the road. I'd get in shape on the road. That's another thing about cross-country bicycling. Unless you're bicycling every day, there's really no way to be in shape enough to start out. You're gonna have to suffer the first 2 weeks of being out of shape, and then I really noticed after 2 weeks, on the 3rd week, I was riding pretty well. And I would ride between 70 and 80 a day if I could. But I rode in a serendipitous way. I some days would ride a few miles and check into a hotel and do a lot of internet work and computer work. And then other days, if the spirit moved me, I would go long distances. It was a constant balance. And for some reason, yeah. And so some days when I was going 75 miles, I felt like I hadn't done enough for the Story Cycle project. And when I went 35 miles, I felt like I could run 35 miles. You can run 20 some miles.
Wow.
But why 30 miles? Well, that's nothing. But I was working. There were days, and I've told you about this, that I didn't leave on my bicycle until noon. And then I would come in at 6 and work till past midnight. And so I had technically spent more time on the computer than I had riding. And so it was a balance the whole time. And I'm still not finished. I have a bunch of B-roll on my phone that I have not done anything about. And I had to change phones. My old phone conked out on me. And that's, yeah.
That's good to hear. I was worried about your phone. You said you had this old phone, and
Yeah. Oh, I missed some good photos in Native American territory in New Mexico. I really regret, because there's some artwork, road artwork, I wasn't able to get because my phone was not taken. And you couldn't get the good camera. The Z50 Nikon is in my packs, so you'd have to stop, get off your bike, take all your packs out, take your camera out, and then take a photo.
yeah.
Roadside art you had to get from your phone, and it for a while there my phone wasn't working, but I got another phone at a Walmart, and and we had to, we adapted. I was like COVID in that I was adapting as I went. And I knew that this bike is breaking down too often. I was warned at one point in New Mexico, a matter of fact, when I got to Albuquerque, a bicycle rider did national bike rides, told me he was worried for me because now it's going to be 400 miles between bike shops, and your bike is breaking down too often, and you are not going to make it. You're going to be 200 miles out in the desert, and you're not going to make it. And I luckily got a great fix in Albuquerque and didn't need any more fixing from New Albuquerque to Santa Monica. But one of the toughest parts, and I'm going to slip this in, was the Mojave Desert, which I did not prepare for. I already knew that I lose a lot of water. Let's just say I sweat a lot, and I should be keeping hydrated, but I didn't know how much, and I became dehydrated. Not one day, not 2 days, but 3 days in a row in the Mojave Desert.
Oh.
So I was helped out in each time by a passing stranger, and it resulted in one time I stopped at the Mojave Cultural Center, and the couple that were caretakers there were also show people, and they would perform at dude ranches. And I said, well, I like singing and I like storytelling. And they go, well, let's bring our guitars out. And they told a story and they sang some songs, including Route 66. And then what isn't on the camera is I sang some songs and told some stories. And I think when I left, I had sung more songs and told more stories than they had. So who was putting on the show, them or me? But I got an interview from them too. And both of the other days in Mojave, someone stopped by and with water and helped me hydrate enough so that I got to my end destination. So either I was a bad planner for the Mojave Desert, or I say I'm that tough that despite not having properly planned for things, I'm going with I'm that tough that I could ignore reality and go through the Mojave Desert not properly hydrated. But that was tough, and I learned my lesson.
I'm going to have to agree with that because, I mean, it's that is a challenge.
One of the guys who stopped to give me water and an orange, a blood orange, was working for California, the state of California, and his job was to track desert bighorn sheep. And so he gave an interview. It was a great interview. And then, in some way, he didn't have any kind of wacky theory about the government controlling his mind or anything, but he was a scientist. But after the interview, he says, meet me down the road. And then he had a telescope out, and it was about a mile off. He showed me a bighorn sheep on the side of the mountain. And the bighorn sheep was looking directly at me, at us. I said, how does that happen? I mean, there's cars going by here. And he goes, I don't know, but very often they're used to the cars and they're not used to anyone looking at them, so they will look directly at you. And it was magnificent to see that animal on the side of a mountain scrounging through the hot 100-degree desert, Mojave Desert.
Well, that actually brings up a question, because you're out in nature. Let's face it. I mean, you can't get any more out in nature than, kind of boots on the ground. Was that, I don't know, are you going to kind of weave that theme into anything? I mean, we just surrounded by just.
Yeah, I mean, I saw vultures. I saw vultures coming down to eat stuff, and I saw wild horses running by, and I saw a dead wild horse on the road, hit by a car, and I saw prairie dogs by legions, pop up their heads and warn each other that there was a bicycler coming by, and then running around like dozens and dozens of them, just running from hole to hole, and then and chirping, and so many hawks flying around and hovering, looking for prey, and even occasionally, I was telling my dad, who grew up on a farm, how funny it was. When I got into Oklahoma, I was scaring cattle. I was going by cattle, and they would look up, they would see me, and I would start a stampede twice in one day. They looked up at me, Black Angus, I'm guessing, and they looked up at me, and as I'm riding by, they started running right with me, right beside me on my right-hand side, running as fast as they possibly could. And it's amazing. And of course, sleeping out at night, you can hear critters everywhere, and it's all in your imagination. And of course, I did sleep out in the desert, and the dark sky without any light pollution at all, seeing more stars than one night I slept out just in my sleeping bag, not with any tent around me at all. I was afraid of scorpions and snakes, but then I just said, well, I went with the fatalism part, where I had heard so many fatalistic Americans already. Well, whatever will be, will be. But I spent the evenings, some of these evenings, looking at the stars and thinking cosmic thoughts about just what everyone thinks about when they look at stars at night, and more stars, billions, millions, and what you imagine to be millions. I'm sure we can only see tens of thousands, but I mean, really, it just seems like billions, and you can see back into time these lights that are coming to you from millions of miles away, and so many thoughts of just cosmic thoughts about life and death and how small we are, and it's as close to a religious moment as they get.
Well, did you ever give any thought to someone coming with you on this? I don't know.
I have believe it or not, I have a friend who is a publicist. And she's actually responsible. I'm supposed to be in the paper today. I don't know. It might be today or tomorrow. I don't see myself online in the Santa Monica News, but I made the Sun, the Arizona Sun, and I arranged for Gannett to do a story on me. But that publicist said, Mike, you've already made a mistake. You didn't prepare enough. And I go, I know I didn't prepare. But I think that's kind of the wild miss of this story, is that I did it because of a dream, and because I knew I could do it, and I think it's original and it's fast. And she goes, no, you made a mistake, Mike, because you should have brought a photographer, and you should have brought a filmer, so that you could ride and question people, and he could take films of you. And I actually know a guy who's a good bicycle rider and a filmmaker.
Well,
And
I don't know.
I said, you know, that's the one way to do it. I don't think he would have done it. He told me not to do it also. He was another guy who said, Mike, you're not in shape for it. You're not going to do it. I mean, I'm a bike rider. I've ridden with you. You're not going to make it. And I go, look, man, I'm going to make it. It's just whether I want the cooperation with the University of Florida to go correctly, and I want the filming to go correctly. I want the people to be responding. I want to deepen my understanding of how people are living with COVID and what the stories they're telling themselves. I want that. That's all on the line. That's all risky. That's all I really worry about. I'll get there if I have to walk. But yes, so bringing someone else along came to mind only afterwards, because the beginning, I just thought no one else would be crazy enough to go out in the snow and start riding with me. No one I knew. And then when it was later suggested that George Hood, who's a friend of mine, would have gone, I know that George would not have gone, and because he thought I couldn't make it, and he didn't like the weather elements. He
Right.
thought it would be too tough because, look, I downplay it, but I was riding through snow. I was sleeping in snow. I actually at night I believe my tongue was frosting over, and when I was sleeping, and I bicycled through sleet and hail and many days of direct westerly wind. And I crossed the Continental Divide in a light snowstorm, but that was not a storm, but it was more of a dusting. That was gorgeous. So the weather and the nature part of it was awe-inspiring, depending on how you take it. Because like I say, it was snowing, and one rider might go, oh, come on, it's snowing and I'm going over the Continental Divide. But I was going, hey, it's snowing. It's not that bad. Everybody can see me. It's not like I'm going to get hit by a truck because the snow is so bad. And but there were moments also that there are certain sections of Route 66. There's no guardrail and there's no shoulder, and you're going through a mountain, and there's thousands of feet of a drop off, and switchbacks, and trucks going by, and so you could easily be sucked into the truck or pushed away, or maybe you hit a pothole that you're off in your mind dreaming, and you hit a pothole. And then you go flying the wrong direction. And so it is all very real. It's not fictional, and so also there's a good feeling when you come through it all that you've had to make a lot of decisions and had to be very independent, and not just in your mind. It's not like a lot of like writing a book is about. And a lot of what you do, academics and living in the world of ideas. This is the world of reality of a shoulder. You better not just faint or go over on the side of a shoulder because it was 100 degrees. And
no one will ever find you, by the way.
Pay attention. Yes, I did make arrangements for my body if there wasn't.
Yeah.
I did make that arrangement. Yes, if I die, but I did make this decision fast because it struck me as original and important, and the nature, you're right, it's awe-inspiring, it's majestic, and the good people everywhere. And So it affected me as a person. Like my book, American Oz, there's a point in American Oz, I don't know if you're at that yet, but I went in as an immersion journalist into these carnivals, and I wanted to only report on these carnival people. But in one town in San Mateo, I told the carnival I was leaving, and the carnival boss told the whole crew. And when the crew found out, they all started throwing their hats in the air, and people were cheering, and people were clapping, and it was a big celebration. I mean, the Mexicans were there, the Mexican workers, and the older people, younger people, and I heard all this, and I took it all in good fun. And I turned around and doffed my hat and made a big theatrical moment out of it. But I realized at that moment, I'm now part of it. And this book has to be, if I'm feeling it, maybe these people are feeling it. If I'm feeling humiliated by the lack of money in my life or lack of status that these working poor go through, maybe they're feeling it. And so having me being part of the story isn't all bad. And this, I also had no feeling that I wanted to be part of it, not even the updates. Those were your ideas. Your idea was to have an update, personal, say something about the ride, Mike. And so I've yet to file my final update. I'm going to do that maybe later, right after this. But I feel part of it too, right? I do, because it's changed me, and there is a drama behind these interviews, and that adds to the story, which is the majestic of the majestic feeling that one gets living out in nature all the time, 100% of the time, and the struggles with your own, fitness and terrain. And every state feels like a different country. And, so all that and more is what is the story behind these interviews.
Well, we all know, we know the power of the story here. And in the 20 years I've been here, I never get tired of hearing it. I always hear something new. And yeah. It's learning. I think you have to like to learn. But I'm not an academic here. I'm just a tech person. But I do get to listen to all the stories. But I will ask you one last question. I want to be respectful of your time. I know you got lots to do than talk to me. But there's a great line in the Hobbit that I love when Gandalf is telling Bilbo, he says, "Well, will I come back from this adventure?" And Gandalf says, "Oh, I can't tell if you'll come back or not. And if you do, you will not be the same person." So do you think that's happened to you?
Yeah, that's the name of one of my chapters, actually, in American Oz. I'm not coming back from this the same. But yes, and that's absolutely true. And I have a kind of reverence for this trip, which was I used all that I could give it, and I thought through everything as I'm riding. I thought I'm rethinking everybody's responses, and I'm doing the most I can to suck it, to get it all into me, and then say something that makes sense afterwards. And I'm still working on that part, but the reverence is there, and I am changed. Yeah, good perception on your part.
Michael, it's a pleasure, and I want to really thank you for taking the time to meet with me today. And I hope this won't be the last time. So I hope our paths will cross again.
You have some interviews being sent to you today or tomorrow, and
I do. Actually, I got them right here.
oh,
So just came in the mail today. So
right.
yeah.
And you have more too.
Okay.
I've taken a bunch of them last week.
Okay. Well, unless you have anything else to add, I'm sure you got other stuff to do today.
Well, I hope that people do take some time and look at some of them. I hope that they can see that, as you and I do, that it matters not just what the famous people do or the movers of the history that people are going to be writing about. It matters because most of history is being moved by these people that we're talking to, and how we are behaving is going to be a great clue to who we are going to be in the future also. And so I think, as they said in Animal House, knowledge is good. I think the knowledge is good. And I think it is going to make us better and more insightful into the ways of humanity. And maybe that's the name of my book. This is the insights into the ways of humanity, but it is. And we're full of a lot of stories that make sense and don't make sense and are pure fantasy. And it's not all the scientific method and facts. It's intuition. We're moving on intuition and traditions and all sorts of other things, and where we're standing. If we're standing in a town of 12, how can we possibly understand 570 or 80,000 dead people? So understanding humanity is to talk to these people. And that's what we're doing. You and I, you helped me greatly. Thank you.
Well, you've helped us and me too. So I learned a lot from you, Michael. So thank you.
Well, I have only admiration for you and your work. Thank you.
Thank you. And the same times 10. So, all right. Well, and that note, I guess I will let you enjoy the rest of your day. And I thank you so much for speaking with me.
Well, thank you. And it's great to meet you. Thank you very much. And anything you want me to do, I'll do. I'll be there.
All right. Well, come by and visit it one day.
I might. I'm driving my parents up from Marco Island.
Well,
Maybe
come on
we'll take
by.
a Gainesville tour.
Well, we got a nice campus. It's completely empty right now. All right.
Maybe I'll love it so much my daughter will move to Florida rather than LA.
There you go. Cheaper anyway. All right. All right. Have a good day, Michael.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.